Hey YouTube, Jiggets here from Jiggets Lives, and today we are going to look at Spider Paddock stand from ConStands for my brand new Ducati Supersport S. So if you're like me, you like to keep your toys in perfect condition. I like the idea of a stand that I can move the bike around with, clean it, wash it, maintenance it, and store it as well. I've heard good things and bad things about these stands, and maybe today we'll figure out what's what. So what we've got here is your typical box inside a box. Main box obviously contains the stand, and then this additional box looks like it contains the components specific to the Monster 1200S, or in this case also, we're hoping the Ducati Supersport S. Okay, so in our small box, we have got, as you can see, the specific components for the Supersport S, or the Supersport. And these are some of the specific connectors that are going to go on this plate. All right. This, I'm not sure this translates very well. This is actually very heavy and a seriously heavy piece of steel here. These are the elements that are going to mount either against the plate and or the bike that are going to provide support for the stand itself. It also comes with some instructions, which I'm really hoping, they're in German. I was hoping they weren't in German, but you know, we got Google Translate, so we'll work through it. Okay, the key to this paddock stand working really hinges on this fellow here, which is the plate that attaches, that basically mates key bike components around the engine to the stand itself. This is the part that I was most confused with when making the purchase, because every bike is different and every bike has different components that secure it against the stand. I'll illustrate how it works for this bike. It looks to be quite secure and mates pretty tightly, and I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so on the Ducati, there's an upper and a lower part here that mates together. The lower part actually comes down here at the bottom and will set right in here. And as you can see, it's fairly tight. There's a little bit of wiggle, but it goes in, pretty far, maybe a quarter inch or so. And that's where the lower part of the plate rests. The plate comes up above here and then also mates up top. The top is a little different. This bolt here actually has to be removed. It goes all the way through this motor mount, has to be removed out. It comes with this piece here, which is a threaded component, which will essentially go into the spot here with that bolt behind, and then gets reinserted through. All right, this is the plate again. You've got a couple of these bolts here with the washers. One goes through here, the other goes through this spot here. And that's gonna fasten primarily over to the stand. And then you've got these pieces here that you saw before. One of them is this bolt, and that's going to be threaded in here, okay, for the top, which mates to the part that's attached to the bike. That'll slide on top there, like this. Oops, sorry, wrong way around. Like this. And then the lower piece, which rests against the back of the bike, will thread in right down there below. So you have these 2 points here that go against the bike. Okay, so with the 2 top posts in place, it looks like this. All right. There we go. And if we look at it up against the bike, we're looking at something that looks like this, right? We're gonna shimmy up against, let me try to get a side angle here. Shimmy up against there, and obviously up here, that's where your sleeve is going to be connected with your motor mount there. That it'll slide into, but this lower piece kind of just sticks and rests inside this lower piece. But that's where the bracket sets against the side of the bike. And to give you a top perspective, It's kind of what we're looking like there. So you can see kind of where the stand goes in the overall geometry of the bike. Okay, as far as the stand itself goes, this is the packaging it comes in. These are actually pretty heavy pieces. They are by no means light. They seem very sturdy and well packed. Inside the box we've got casters and some arms and miscellaneous fasteners as well. All right, got the stand section unpackaged, and once again, pretty heavy duty stuff. The quality of this material looks pretty nice. Everything's quite heavy. I banged myself on the knee, unfortunately, and I can testify that that hurt. But this looks pretty nice. The casters are actually quite impressive. They're a rubber caster, a solid rubber caster, and you can tell they're pretty heavy duty. And they're also going to be pretty nice on your floors. So no matter what kind of floors you've got, I've got these epoxy floors, obviously. I'm not worried about these scratching or causing issues. And they're well lubricated and bearing, so I think this will come together really well. Once I get the stand assembled, I'll show how the mechanism itself works for the lift too. Okay, here's the stand assembly complete. Rolls rather nicely. You can see both of the end casters have stoppers on them, which seem to work, best I can tell, rather well. Pretty solid. And this, you've got a pin here at the bottom. If you remove that, it allows this entire arm to fold flat for storage, apparently. It's kind of a pseudo disassembly. As far as the actual lift is concerned, you've got kind of two sides of it. You get the long arm that basically moves up, right? And you can see the lift goes down to grab the bike, and then when you want to raise it, you're going to come up like this. And what keeps it up is basically a very simple device here, which ratchets in the, I'll have to flip it this way first, come up, and then you see is it's going to ratchet along the gears and then stop, right? And then when you want to release the bike, presumably you're going to drop this, and you can see the teething on the back of the slide there. Okay, ran into the first little hiccup here when it came to putting the plate, mounting the plate on the lift itself. You can see that I need the top and the bottom holes, and we've got this Allen bolt here sitting for the top one. So I think the simple option is going to be that the bolt that I've got is going to replace this one thread through and be fine. So we'll see if that is indeed the case. I've removed the spacer plate here, and underneath I see I've got a whole host of different distances. I know what works for my plate, obviously. Within the distances, I've got some space above and below. It's not a big space, maybe an inch or so, that potentially you could get a little lower or a little higher if you wanted. I don't think it's going to matter. If I have to adjust it, I will. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip this guy around and then mount the plate on top of it. And just for clarity, there's the plate, and there's the spacer, and there's the two bolts I've just kind of fed through. This bottom one slides. This is actually going to be a screw adjustment at the bottom to change the angle of the plate, the balance of the bike, I'm assuming. So now we're just going to mount that guy on here. Okay, so I've got the plate mounted on now, and I've left it a little bit loose for the time being, just because I kind of want to see how it lines up the bike. You can see here is the spacer behind. And what I want to do now is roll over and see if I'm even in the geometry of the bike. Okay, so the geometry is pretty lined up. It's really obvious to me once I went up to the bike that this adjustment here is really all about getting it lined up just right for your bike. I think what's going to happen is I'm probably going to actually get it mounted and lined up with the bike, and then tighten those down for the right fit. The other thing to notice too is that you can see there's a bit of a rake on the stand itself. The lift leans back a little bit. I'm assuming it's by design to make sure that you're not coming and sliding off the front of these posts, specifically the top one. The bottom one's really just kind of a guide. So next step is to actually make the modification on the Ducati itself, and we're going to add this post seat. I'm sure the Germans have a long word for it. I don't know what it is. It is in the manual. But we're going to put this on the engine mount this on the engine block, and then from there we can start actually getting this thing up. So we'll see. Okay, I have now got the this bolt with the this sliding end bolt here in place on the bike. You can see it protrudes a little bit, not a lot. It doesn't, you know, I'm not loving the extra piece hanging on my bike. It's going to come down to utility. You know, is the overall utility of the bike or of the stand worth having it? We'll have to see. Now let's see if we can get it aligned and up. Okay, so it took a little bit of playing with it to get the exact angle on this left to right here. But the set screw is helpful in kind of dialing this in and figuring out exactly where you need to be. So now it's, after putting it on and off the bike, it's getting a little bit easier, and you're kind of understanding how to get a position. So I'll show you how that works. Okay, so we got the stand assembled, and now we'll show you how it actually mates with the bike. So we'll zoom in a little bit here, kickstand up, you roll basically up to the side, and you got a couple of, you know, your two posts are going to mate. Takes a little bit of kind of lean back and forth with the bike to get it lined just right. I'm doing this kind of carefully. It's my first few times. So there you can see it's seated properly. I've kind of got my foot resting on it here to brace it. And then as far as lifting the bike goes, there's a long lever, but this is not for the faint of heart. You actually have to crank on this sucker to get this bike in the air. So flip up your ratchet lock. Make sure you kind of straighten down the bike side. And you'll see the bike kind of straighten and stand as you lean on it. I like to make sure that these parts aren't separating at all. And then when you feel like you are beginning to bear the weight of the bike, you know, kind of take my hand off the bike a little bit and just lean into it. And that's it.
So you can see that once you get it up, it's quite stable. It's quite secure. You know, there's a bit of a flex in it, which is largely a function of, if you look at that, you can see it's largely a function of flex inside this main post. But it would take quite a bit to unsettle the bike and actually tip it off, either left or right or front to back. You'd really have to crank on it. I can see it happening, but you'd have to be pretty thoughtless in how you're you know, working on the bike. So it seems to me to be pretty darn stable. It'll have to stand the test of time, but it seems solid to me. So I've been using the stand now for about a week, and been very happy with it. It makes moving the bike around a ton easier. Managing space inside your garage has been much simpler. So as far as what I wanted the stand to do, I think it's right on the mark. At this point, I don't have any concerns about whether the bike's going to slip off or fall, or the stand's going to tip. I haven't had anything that's concerning whatsoever. So I give it 2 thumbs up. Hope this was helpful. And if you get questions, comments, please leave them below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.